got some nice long hair.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. Also, rate the show 5 stars if you're listening to us, because you can get the show everywhere you get your podcast. And friendly reminder, if you are a sports bettor, go over to betus.com, link down in the description, and use promo code UNBEARABLE for 125% back on your first deposit. So, ladies and gents, for those watching, I'm Johnny PayPal-less. PayPal is not here. He's taking the day off. It's his birthday today, so wish him a happy birthday. It's his birthday, so I am going to be flying solo, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. For our NFL draft heads out there, we are going to be previewing the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. This does not get a lot of coverage overall, and kind of rightfully so, but I will say the reason why this is so important is this shapes the end of the draft. There's a lot of prospects out there. It was hard to find just 10 because not a lot of people go all the way to 10 or all the way to the later rounds to kind of adjust and see who could be available and who could be someone to look out for. So that's where it's all crazy. I'm giving you 10 that to me seem like consensus draft picks that we should be able to watch because, hey, it's college football, and this really does shape that tail end of the draft, and there is some good talent inside this all-star game. So let's get things started, shall we? So we're going to start things off with number 1. This doesn't mean the number 1. My actual favorite player is number 9. I didn't do that on purpose. It's just the way that this kind of goes down. But my first player I want to talk about is SaRodorick Thompson. Out of Texas Tech, he's going to be on the American squad, number 4. Running back out of Texas Tech, like I said, he was there for 5 years at Texas Tech and typically averaged just around 5 yards a carry. Now, what I like about him is just a hard-nosed running back. Also, when you're watching a lot of these games, running backs can easily stick out to you. And SaRodorick, he is one of the best running backs out there to me. He's my favorite that's going to be there because he's just a powerful runner. He's a good runner overall, and that's why I really like him. Also, they've used him in 2-back sets as an actual blocker, and honestly has been phenomenal. So he shows an upside as a blocker, but also can just a very tough runner, tough legs, and can easily kind of run through some players. So I think that he's going to have a pretty good game overall. So to me, SaRodorick Thompson, first player off the board, someone to be looking at number 4 for American. Get your pens and paper out there or your phone and just type some of these down if you're going to watch. It's also going to be on NFL Network, I believe. So make sure to stay tuned. But also, number 2, I have Joseph Ngata out of Clemson. So he is 6'3", 220. He has the physical. He's a physical specimen, 5-star recruit coming out of high school, has never lived up to the hype, so to speak. He's been banged up with injuries, and that's why this is a great opportunity for us to watch. There's a lot of good wide receivers for people to be watching out there. So Clemson, 6'3", 220, has all the physical tools that you want in a wide receiver, shows that he has strong hands, but he is a bad route runner. He struggles against the press, and that's obviously not going to fly in the NFL. So hopefully he can kind of show what he's capable of. And just so everyone knows, SaRodorick Thompson has been looking like he's going to be going in like around the 7th or undrafted. And Ngata, I've seen him 5th round. I've seen him 6th round. I've seen him 7th round. And I've seen him undrafted. So this is where that end of the draft, this really kind of goes up in the air. So I think that's where you look at some of his stats too. Overall, let me just pull it up. Not great. Last season, 526 overall yards, 2 touchdowns. The year before that, only 438 receiving yards. So really, like I said, hasn't shown that production as a former 5-star recruit. And that's why number 10 on the national team, Joseph Ngata, look for him at that wide receiver position. NFL size, hopefully can start to make a name for himself. But we're going to go from a 5-star recruit to probably one of the most interesting prospects that we're going to see during this game. And that's Keelan Harris, number 82 on the national team, 5'11, 185 out of Oklahoma Baptist. Yes, that is a school, Oklahoma Baptist. I tried finding as much as I could on him, and it's really hard. So a lot of people that have actually seen his games and acquired some form of Oklahoma Baptist tape, they're like, this guy's good. This guy, some people are comping to like a Deebo Samuel. That's why I really want to see what he's capable of. He's a wide receiver, kind of Mr. Weapon out there, shows good hands for, but smaller, 185 at 5'11. And also, if you're looking at his production, what has he done at a lower level? Last year, he had 1,050 yards in 11 games with 7 touchdowns. And the year before that, in 12 games, had 1,084 receiving yards with 16 touchdowns. So that's why, to me, he's going to be the most interesting player out there. Because I always like to see these smaller schools because he could be the star of this show. He's either going to be the star of the game or we're going to be like, who is that guy that Brad suggested in the preview? Keelan something out of Baptist something. Like, that's why look for number 82 on the national team because he could really rocket up some people's boards, or he can kind of sit in kind of an undrafted area and not get drafted at all if he doesn't do well against upper level of competition. That's why Keelan Harris, 82 on the national team. Write it down. Look for him at the wide receiver position. Very interesting prospect, to say the least. But also, this might just be my Bears bias that we're looking at more wide receivers. And I want to see more wide receivers out there. But I will say overall, the wide receiver class inside of this game is good. So definitely watch wide receivers. I have one more wide receiver to keep an eye out for, and that is Mitchell Tinsley out of Penn State. So you might have heard him. You might have seen him watching some Illinois games. Wide receiver, number 85 out of American. And 6'1", 205, not ideal size, but okay size nonetheless. It looks like he left as a junior, and looking back at his stats, what really kind of put him on the map last year was with Bailey Zappi. He was at Western Kentucky before transferring over to Penn State. At Western Kentucky, he had 1,400 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns. Dominant. And you watch him too. You watch some of the tape. His Western Kentucky tape, this guy's dominant. This guy is breaking tackles. This guy's taking it long. He's also able to track the ball very, very well. So watching the tape, I'm like, this guy should easily be drafted in the 4th. Like, he shows a lot of that upside, but when he transferred over to Penn State, started to kind of struggle. And obviously there's other talent around him, but 577 yards, still not bad, right? And 5 touchdowns. But when you look at his tape at Penn State versus Western Kentucky, he looks like a different player. So I want to see what he looks like at this All-Star game. He's another player that can really impress a lot of people out there and be probably the best wide receiver or the highest drafted wide receiver out of this group if he has a good game. So that's why, to me, this guy could ball at Western Kentucky and was Bailey Zappi's right-hand man. Penn State, not so much. Maybe it's the system. Maybe it's getting used to the quarterbacks. That's why I'm excited to see what he can do out there. That's why he's my 4th player on this list. 85 out of American, Mitchell Tinsley. So, ladies and gents, let's go over to the offensive line. For the offensive line, just a little bit of tips. I only wanted to grab 10. Like I said, we'd be here all day talking about the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. But I just want to really kind of highlight, look at the offensive tackles. A lot of the best prospects, especially in these all-star games, usually play offensive tackle because they play offensive tackle, they show what they can do, and then NFL teams move them over inside to guard. So look at the offensive tackles. A lot of fringe 7th rounders to undrafteds out there. So keep an eye on them. They could show you something impressive. I'll also be recapping the game on Sunday as well, just so we can kind of hear who are some of the people that you want to Google, you want to look up and see, are they that good, or are they going to be creeping up some people's draft boards? But the last offensive guy that I have is Trevor Downing out of Iowa State, 6'3", 300, number 52 on the American side. This guy, I don't mean a stereotype. Trevor Downing is your typical farm boy from Iowa. Like, just if you just picture it, that's Trevor Downing. And he's built that way. He's a strong guy, physical guy. Not the best of hands, but I will say too, he has gotten beaten a lot of times from speed rushers up the middle. We obviously don't know what our center situation is going to be. That's why I'm really curious to see how does he play at against some better competition. And he's someone who is versatile. He could be lining up at guard. He could also be lining up at that center position. Maybe a replacement for Mustafa, and someone that I really can see going in the 5th or 6th round if he ends up playing well. But like I said, he's a good foundation, is able to kind of move some players, but really seems like a later round pick. Really get to see him against some of that all-star competition. So Trevor Downing, 52 out of American. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. Actually, let's go over to some of these comments. Reload's asking how the baby's doing. Doing fine. Just she's been sleeping like a doll. It's been absolutely incredible. Absolutely love it. How is 5'11"? Yeah, a Devo a comp, right? Yeah, that's J Rock in the comments is saying, how is 5'11", 185 a Devo comp? I don't know. I actually heard that from a draft scout. And then yeah, that's a very good point. Like, how is that? I think anybody that is a running back / wide receiver, they just comp to Debo. Like, oh, this guy's a playmaker, just like Debo Samuel. So I think that's why a lot of people comp him out there. I haven't seen a lot of the tape out there, to be honest with you. If you Google him, very, very hard to try and find Keelan Harris tape. So we'll see. We'll see. But J Rock also saying Poles going free agent for O-line like Isaac Samalu and Mike McGlinchey or McGarry. I like McGlinchey and Siumalu. I like those guys. I really like them at right guard, or even switching him over to left guard too. I think that's a really good option with McGlinchey at that right tackle, shoring that up. So let's go over back to the NFLPA Bowl. Let's see the last 5 that I have. Like I said, number 9 is my favorite, so we'll have to wait for that. But let's go to number 6, and that is Scott Matlock. Scott Matlock is a number 99 American defensive tackle out of Boise State, 6'3", 298. Now, this player, 7 sacks, 2 years in his junior year, leader of the defense, the Boise State defense. Yet again, it's Boise State, but still, it's good to see someone as a leader out there that is going to be playing at these NFL Collegiate Bowl games. Also, seems like he needs to lean up. Another guy that doesn't have a lot of tape, but has a lot of hype. A lot of Boise fans. There's a lot of fan posts about him, but he needs to lean up. You see him, he looks a little fat, to be honest with you. Needs to lean up. But what I thought was funny is watching some of his tape that I could find, he would get skinny in the hole, type of slip by some players and be able to make some of those sacks. Like I said, leader out there. What can he do against better competition? That's why Scott Matlock, defensive tackle, 99 out of American, is someone to be on the lookout for, because we definitely need some defensive interior help. I like the idea of drafting some people too, to try and get some youth in there, even though that you're going to be probably signing some players and also probably getting Jalen Carter if you trade with the Colts. But still, I like the idea of potentially drafting someone. Scott Matlock might be there in the 6th or 7th round, potentially, or a UDFA. Now let's go over to number 7, Corey Durden from NC State. This is a player 90 out for American, so American and national sides. NC State D tackle, 6'4", 305, so tall, a little bit leaner than a Scott Matlock. Even though Scott Matlock is under 300, Matlock doesn't hold it too well. So Durden, more sturdy. But I'm curious to see what he does. He is someone that I've seen ranked super high, seen him ranked as a 4th round pick. But also, I look at him and he looks like a 3-4 defensive end. Plays a lot of that 5 technique. But yeah, some people listed 4th, 5th rounder. I'm really interested to see, can he kind of take that next step? I don't really love the fit for him with the Bears, but that's why I'm hoping that they play him more in a traditional 4-3 type of a defense, because really the only sacks that I saw on tape was when he was lined up in a 3-4 defense as that true 3-4 defensive end. That's just what gets me a little bit scared, because maybe he's not a perfect fit for the Bears. But he was at Florida State, did decently well, got 2 sacks his freshman season, then got 5 sacks in his sophomore season, transferred over to NC State in 2021 and got 3.5 sacks. And then in his final year at NC State in 2022, no sacks, but 27 tackles. Good player, later round pick, someone to keep your eye on if we want to have some of that younger depth at that defensive tackle position. Now let's go over to the linebackers. We need some help at linebacker. This guy is kind of a tweener. I think he's going to play more defensive end during this game, though. Dural Nachami. Lots of difficult names out here. Dural Nachami. This is a very interesting prospect because he is pure projection. He is 6'4", 255 out of Maryland, number 93 on the national team. So keep an eye on him. Most likely going to line up at defensive end. This guy has the frame. Like, people that want to draft him or have him ranked high, they like him because the potential. They like him because of his frame. I'm looking at his stats right now. In 2018, had 15 tackles, then had 1 in 19, then had 4 in 20, then had 9 in 21, and then had 20 in 22. But he did have 3 sacks in 22 and 3 sacks in 21. So limited playing time, but was able to kind of get pressure on the quarterback. He's got the frame, and it's really just all a projection. What can he do? 93 on national team. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on him, because if he's not doing anything, I could see him as a 7th round player then, rather than a 5th, right? People like his length. People like his size. That's why I think he could maybe drop if he ends up showing, like, listen, I was a backup for a reason. I didn't play a lot because I'm not that good. But he shows a lot of upside as a pass rusher. Now, I'm hoping that we sign a lot of veterans on the defensive end, but this could be a later round guy that we potentially take a flyer on with Dural Nachami. Now, like I said, player number 9, my favorite in the draft. Number 9, Mikhail Jones out of Syracuse. He is 6'1", 224, and this guy to me is by far the best player in the draft. Now, not in the draft, inside of this game. Let's get real here. He's the best player in the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. He's good. He's your standard outside linebacker for the 4-3 defense. Who he reminds me of? He reminds me of a combination of Matt Adams and Nicholas Morrow. Now, I know that we kind of want to move on from those guys, but if you can get a player like that and draft him in the 5th round, in the 6th round, that's great. He's someone that has a lot of speed to him, lighter size at 6, he's only 6'1", not super short, but shorter than kind of the prototypical linebacker. And 224 is decently light. It's not flimsy, but it's still light. He really wins with his speed and just a fast player out there. Last year had 82 total tackles and 4 sacks. They sent him, I even got a little bit of Roquan Smith vibes, like literally a lot of those smaller, undersized guys we have. He gives you that vibe. So I think this team might really like him and want to draft a Mikhail Jones, 53 on the American side. So last year in 2021 had 109 tackles and 3 sacks. To me, best player out there. Look for him, 53 on American. Look for that orange helmet of Syracuse, because I honestly think that the Bears will look at him and really like him as a depth piece and someone that could maybe fight for a Sam linebacker job. Not immediately, but like I said, reminds me of some of the players that we did bring in. So I think he's going to be someone that a lot of people are going to be looking at. And that's why he's my favorite player in this game. Mikhail Jones, 53 out of American. Jot it down. And last but not least, and then we'll go through them all again, just quick little runoff. Number 10, I have Anthony Johnson, cornerback out of Iowa State. He's going to be wearing 31 for the national side. Now, Anthony Johnson, 5-year player at Iowa State and 6 foot 207. So very good size at the cornerback position. And to me, he's versatile. He could line up at safety, he could line up at corner, and he can return the football. A lot of teams are going to be looking at that and say, I got to draft this guy. Now, all these players that we're talking about as the best players, a lot of these are 6th rounders. A lot of these are 5th rounders. Like I said, some of these people have ranked higher, and this is where it's really going to shape how good are some of these guys. Now, with Anthony Johnson, last year had 60 tackles, 4 passes defense, and 2 interceptions. In 2021, 55 tackles, 1 sack, and 4 passes defensed, 0 interceptions. 2020, 40 tackles, and in 2019, he had 60 tackles. So he has a lot of starting experience for Iowa State, and just want to see what he's capable of against this competition. That's really the moral of the story with this game. It's really seeing who separates themselves. And I think Anthony Johnson Jr., he could be lining up at that safety spot. He could be lining up in the nickel potentially. I want to see what they do with him. So be looking for that Iowa State emblem on his helmet, number 31 for the national team. So I wish I could dig deeper or show some highlights. There isn't a lot of information out on some of these players, but I did look consensusly. These are pretty much the top 10 players out there. So just kind of a recap in case anyone wants to write this down. My first player, SaRodorick Thompson, number 4 on the American side from Texas Tech. The running back, make sure to keep an eye out for him. Then number 2, wide receiver, Joseph Ngata out of Clemson, number 10. He's number 10 for the national team. Then we have wide receiver Keelan Harris, 82 for the national team, smaller wide receiver. And then we have wide receiver Mitchell Tinsley. I always want to say Mitchell Trubisky when I see his name, but 85 on the American side. He's from Penn State. Then we have center Trevor Downing, 52 on the American side from Iowa State, could also be lining up at guard. Scott Matlock, 99 American defensive tackle from Boise State. Corey Durden, 90 American from NC State D tackle. And Dural Nachami, 93 national from Maryland. And then Mikhail Jones, like we said, from Syracuse, 53 on the American side. And Anthony Johnson Jr., 31 national side from Iowa State. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for joining. This is what we wanted to be just breaking down. I want to make sure that we give you all the best coverage we can and talk about maybe a game that no one else is really covering. If you love the draft like me and you just want to watch more football, this is a perfect game to just watch. So like I said, it's going on Saturday. I hope you got your pen and paper and wrote some of these down. I'll see you on Sunday for the next show. Thank you all so much. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. Also, search for the show. Download it on your favorite podcast app. Just search for Unbearable Sports. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you know